The state's new two-year budget takes effect July 1st. Joining me to offer her perspective on what was accomplished during the 2019 legislative session is the Speaker of the House, Melissa Hortman. Thanks for joining me today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Following the 2018 election, which gave control of the House to the DFL, your members brought a lot of energy. Minnesota has divided government. So in the end, how do you rate this first session?
It was a very successful budget year. You know, Minnesota has seen a lot of dysfunction in its budget years in the previous two cycles. 2015 ended in chaos and a need for a special session to finish the budget in the middle of June. 2017 ended up with the line item veto of the legislative budget, a lawsuit by the Republican House and the Republican Senate against DFL Governor Mark Dayton. So when you look at this year, what you see is functional government. You see competent leaders coming together, reaching a bipartisan compromise to keep the state functioning and funding the most important values that Minnesotans have: education, healthcare, economic security.
Now, you mentioned compromise, which is my next question. The initial House DFL budget proposal approached $50 billion. In the end, the agreement that was reached is around $48 billion. Are you satisfied with the compromise that was made to reach a final agreement?
Yeah, this is the best we can do with a Republican Senate. What you see with the way the budget deal was crafted, that we really need increased revenue in order to invest in the things that Minnesotans care about. So you saw us using $491 million of budget reserves in order to make sure we had adequate education funding. Now, why did we have to dip into the reserves to make sure we had strong education funding? It was because Minnesota Senate Republicans refused to raise any revenue. What we really have in Minnesota is a need to raise revenue going forward. We have to bring inflation back into the forecast and accept that as an economic reality of our lives, and then understand that if we want to put the investments we need in education in the next few years, we are going to need increased revenue to do that, because the forecast is not forecasting enough revenue for us to take care of our schools in the way that Minnesotans would like us to. So I think the result of a $48 billion budget shows that we really have needs that are not being met, and that it is time for us to talk about ways that we can increase revenue.
So that said, from your perspective, what were the greatest achievements of the session and what are the greatest disappointments?
Well, colossal that we preserved Minnesota's 27-year-old provider tax. This tax helps fund health care for more than 1.2 million Minnesotans. And to lose that stream of revenue and the health care that it provides for Minnesotans would have been devastating. So it was really a substantial achievement. The Governor Walz and I were able to convince Senate Majority Leader Paul Gazelka and his caucus to vote for that revenue to continue. It is a sizable chunk of revenue and is not something that Republicans are generally open to doing. Minority Leader Kurt Daudt, in fact, in the Minnesota House, kind of wanted to shut the whole thing down and camp out till the middle of the summer with the government shutdown to block the provider tax. So it shows you what a difference it made in flipping the House to Democratic control, that we've preserved that incredible resource for Minnesotans. Also, the education funding is really strong in this budget. So we have 2 and 2 on the general education formula, which is kind of the headline story. But beneath the headline is this very important stream of funding, $90 million to address special education in Minnesota. It's really critical that we provide funding expressly for special education. Otherwise, school districts have to provide it, and they find it in other places. So that was a really significant piece of this budget. And then also preserving the 4,000 pre-K spots, which if the House would have stayed Republican, we would not have those 4,000 pre-K slots.
And disappointments?
Well, there's a lot of progressive policy that Minnesotans are asking for. Minnesotans really want 100% clean energy. They want us to do something about gun violence, and they know that the common sense measures that the Minnesota House put forward are ways that we can increase safety in our communities. So I would say Minnesotans are not satisfied with standing still on some of those policy priorities. But the first year of the biennium is really a budget year, and what Minnesotans deserve is a government that works and leaders who can find compromise, and that's what they got this year.
Now, before session started, you came on the program and you spoke of the importance of education, affordable health care, and economic security as sort of the pillars of your DFL caucus. Regarding health care, just to talk about it a little bit more, Governor Walz was on the program last week, and he said basically in terms of health care, we're maintaining the status quo because the reinsurance program will continue and because of the provider tax, which will now continue with no sunset at 1.8%. What is needed from your view in order to continue to move towards affordable health care in Minnesota?
Well, Minnesota is in pretty good shape. You know, we're the #2 healthiest state in the country. I think Hawaii beats us by a little bit, and that might have something to do with weather or, you know, tropical breezes or something. But Minnesota has a really strong healthcare environment. Most of us are covered at our employers. And so we do have some pretty big issues we have to address, but we're doing very well. So status quo is an achievement. To not move backwards and to not be like the rest of the country, and to continue our Minnesota exceptionalism is really a success story in healthcare. So standing still at an A level is good. The place where we really need to focus is pharmaceutical drugs. I mean, we really should not have people in one of the richest states in the richest country of the world dying because they are rationing their medication. Now, I think Republicans are having some second thoughts about selling out to the pharmaceutical industry during the session. It was very clear that there was a decision made by Senate Republicans and House Republicans that they wanted to kill any reform on insulin. And the reason was their friends in the pharmaceutical industry, the lobbyists, had convinced them that, you know, this was going to be something that was not politically palatable for them. Well, now I think they're having some second thoughts. They're hearing from Minnesotans who are dependent on prescription drugs. And I think Senate Republicans and House Republicans are ready to join House DFLers and Senate DFLers in really pushing the pharmaceutical industry to make their drugs more affordable, especially their life-saving drugs that have low production costs. There's just really no excuse for them gouging consumers.
Well, that leads to another question I had for you, which is the Star Tribune editorial board wrote that the failure to pass an emergency insulin supply bill cast a pall over this entire legislative session. Now, Senate Republicans have asked Governor Walz to call a special session around Labor Day to move legislation forward that would provide emergency insulin to people who can't afford it. Senator Housley also mentioned epileptic drugs, other drugs like that. Is this a good idea, a special session to work on emergency supplies of drugs?
Absolutely, especially if it's not a proposal that's crafted by the pharmaceutical industry and that's not a sellout to the pharmaceutical industry. So there's no reason for us to come in if Senate Republicans remain wedded to the proposed solutions put forward by the pharmaceutical industry itself, which accepts no responsibility for the problems that it's caused in opioids or insulin or any range of other drugs that Minnesotans need. So we absolutely should come in to do a special session and take care of this issue, not just for those who use insulin, but for prescription drugs more broadly. But it shouldn't be just a show for Senate Republicans to look like they care and look like they want to do something when all that they're really willing to do is something that the pharmaceutical industry is promoting itself.
Before we go, this has been your first foray as Speaker in crafting a budget. What have you learned? What more reform would you like to see happen?
Well, as I forecast before the whole process started, we need to come up with budget targets earlier. And I was pleased that Senator Loehrke and Governor Walz agreed with me that we should have targets by May 6th. I was displeased that they didn't regard that as a real deadline. We need some sort of reform that has the hammer dropping on a deadline for budget targets earlier, because that process of putting together these bills really should be happening in the conference committees and really should be happening in public. Now, the good thing is we had 3 weeks of conference committee meetings, so we had a lot of decisions made in the public, far, far more than if you look at the 2015 session, where bills were literally crafted in smoke-filled rooms with lobbyists with no public input. And in 2017, where it was a rushed, harried process with very little public process. So we have moved down the path of openness and transparency, but there's still quite a distance to go. And people have to regard the earlier deadlines as something meaningful that they're going to stick to.
Speaker Hortman, always a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.